My name's Daniel, I'm 32, and I always thought I had a decent relationship with my parents. Not perfect, but decent. I was the quiet kid growing up, the one who did his homework, didn't cause trouble, and never asked for much. My younger sister Claire, on the other hand, was the center of attention. She had this loud, sparkling personality that seemed to fill every room, and my parents adored her for it. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. She's funny, energetic, and, when she wants to be, incredibly kind. But there was always this unspoken imbalance between us. Birthdays, holidays, even small family dinners. Claire was the star, and I was, well, the audience. I didn't resent it, not really. I told myself it was just family dynamics. Some kids are the golden ones, some are steady shadows. I figured my place was to keep the peace, help where I could, and not make waves. It worked, or at least I thought it did, until last month when everything quietly shattered in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. It started on a Sunday. I'd just come by my parents' house for lunch. I don't visit as often as Claire, she lives only 20 minutes away while I'm in another city, but I still make an effort. My mom called that morning, using her syrupy tone. "Sweetheart, we haven't seen you in ages. Why don't you come over? We're making roast chicken, your favorite." That tugged at me, so I agreed. When I got there, the smell of garlic and herbs drifted through the hallway, and the sound of Claire's laughter echoed from the living room. I slipped off my shoes, hung up my coat, and wandered in. That's when I froze. On the wall above the fireplace, where my graduation photo had hung for over a decade, was something new. A massive framed portrait of Claire's golden retriever, Max. He was wearing a little tuxedo bow tie, tongue lolling out, looking like he'd just won an award. My photo. Gone. Just gone. I blinked a few times, certain I'd missed something. Maybe my picture had been moved? Maybe it was in a different frame? But no, the spot was clear. It was Max's spot now. Surprise! Claire sang out when she noticed me staring. Isn't it adorable? Mom had this done at a pet photographer in town. Isn't Max the most handsome boy? I swallowed, my throat tight. My mom turned from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Oh, Daniel, don't look so serious. We just thought it was fun. You don't mind, do you? Max is part of the family too." My dad chuckled from his armchair, nodding toward the photo like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Look at him. Better smile than you had in that graduation shot, anyway." The words hit me harder than they should have. Maybe it was the casualness of it. Maybe it was the way no one even thought to explain before I walked in. My picture, my one tiny representation in this house, had been replaced by a dog, and they didn't see anything wrong with it. I tried to laugh, to brush it off, but the sound came out hollow. Claire grinned, reaching up to pat the frame proudly. I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want to see this face every day? Max deserves the spotlight. I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask why it had to be my picture that was taken down. But all I managed was a stiff smile and a nod. Yeah, real handsome. Inside, though, something twisted. It wasn't just a photo. It was a message, whether they meant it or not. In this family, even the dog had a place of honor before I did. Lunch should have been comforting. The roast chicken smelled incredible, the table was set neatly, and there were enough side dishes to feed an army. But all I could think about was that wall. Every time I glanced up, Max's goofy dog grin stared back at me, tongue out like he was mocking me. Claire sat across from me, feeding Max scraps under the table. My mom kept laughing at it, while my dad sipped his beer, half watching football in the background. It was all so ordinary, so casual, and yet I felt like a ghost in my own family. Claire's been so busy with Max's new Instagram page, my mom said proudly, as she passed the potatoes. He already has 5,000 followers. Isn't that amazing? Claire flipped her hair and beamed. Actually, it's 6,000 now. I just posted a reel of him chasing bubbles. It's blowing up. That dog has more fans than me, Dad joked, raising his glass. And probably more job offers too. Everyone laughed. Everyone but me. I forced a smile, stabbing at my plate. Daniel, what about you? My mom asked suddenly. How's work? Still doing finance things? She waved her hand vaguely, like my job was some fuzzy, unimportant detail. I nodded. Yeah, still at the same firm. Actually, I was promoted last month. But before I could finish, Claire squealed. Oh, that reminds me. Max got invited to a dog-friendly wedding. Can you believe it? He's going to wear a little tux again. The conversation shifted instantly. My promotion, the thing I'd worked years for, was forgotten mid-sentence. They all leaned in, oohing and awing over Max's upcoming appearance, like he was some kind of celebrity. I set down my fork and just stared at my plate. The warmth of the food tasted like ash in my mouth. Then, as if to rub salt into the wound, my mom reached across the table and placed her hand over Claire's. Sweetheart, you've given this family so much joy. You and Max both. Honestly, this house feels brighter with you around. Claire giggled, tossing her hair. Well, Max is basically your grandchild, so. Everyone laughed again. Everyone but me. Something inside me cracked then. It wasn't just about the photo. It wasn't about Max. It was about years of being overlooked, years of being treated like background noise while my sister was celebrated for every little thing. Even her dog was more important than my life milestones. For the first time, I wondered, was I really part of this family, or just the convenient extra they tolerated? I sat through the rest of lunch in silence, the conversation bouncing around me like I wasn't even there. At one point my mom asked if I wanted more gravy, but even that felt more like a reflex than actual attention. By the time dessert came out, apple pie, my favorite, I'd had enough. When Claire excused herself to take Max for a walk, I cleared my throat. My parents were still at the table, sipping coffee, relaxed. My dad leaned back in his chair with a satisfied sigh. Can I ask you something? I said, my voice quieter than I intended. My mom glanced up, distracted. Of course, sweetheart. What is it? I pointed toward the living room. Why did you take my photo down? The silence that followed was sharp. My dad blinked, then chuckled like I'd made a joke. You mean the graduation picture? That thing was ancient. Ancient. I repeated, heat creeping into my voice. It was 10 years ago. And it was the only photo of me in this house. My mom set down her cup with a clink. Daniel, don't be dramatic. We just wanted to put something fresh up. You're overreacting. Fresh, I said, struggling to keep my tone calm. You replaced me with a dog. My dad frowned. Max isn't just a dog. He's family. I stared at him, my jaw tight. So what does that make me? If even the dog has a place on the wall before I do. My mom's lips thinned into that tight, practiced smile she always wore when things got uncomfortable. You're being too sensitive. It's not a competition. But that was the thing, it had always been a competition. Every birthday, every holiday, every milestone. And I had always been the one losing, no matter how much I tried. I pushed back my chair. The legs screeched against the floor. You know what? Forget it. Daniel, my mom said sharply, don't start this again. Start what? My voice cracked despite my effort to hold it steady. Asking to matter. Asking for one piece of recognition in this family. Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time, I saw a flash of something hard behind her calm expression. Don't ruin the afternoon. Claire brings us joy. You've always been serious. You can't expect us to pretend otherwise. I froze. It wasn't the words themselves, it was the way she said them. Like my role in the family had been decided long ago, and nothing I did would ever change it. I grabbed my coat without another word and walked out the door. As it slammed behind me, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about a photo. This was about who I was in their eyes. And maybe I had never really been more than a placeholder. I didn't hear from my parents for a week after that lunch. No calls, no texts, nothing. At first, I thought maybe they were giving me space, but deep down, I knew better. Silence wasn't peace in my family. It was dismissal. It was their way of saying, you'll come back when you're ready to play your part again. And maybe I would have, if not for the fact that something in me had shifted that day. Walking out of their house, past that stupid dog photo, I felt like I'd left behind more than just an argument. I'd left behind the illusion that I was valued. On Friday evening, as I sat in my apartment with takeout boxes scattered across the coffee table, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. Daniel, her voice chimed through the line, overly sweet. We haven't heard from you. Are you upset? I leaned back against the couch. What do you think? She sighed, a practiced, patient sound. Honey, we didn't mean to hurt you. You know we love you. You're you're so independent. You don't need the little things the way Claire does. There it was again, the same justification I'd heard my entire life. Claire needed attention. I didn't. Therefore, she got the spotlight, and I got the shadows. Before I could respond, my mom added, anyway, we were hoping you could help your father this weekend. He's having some trouble with the garage door. You're always so handy with that sort of thing. I almost laughed. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd said last Sunday. Just a pivot into need. Of course, I muttered. That's why you called. What's that supposed to mean? She snapped, a crack in her sugary tone. It means, I said slowly, choosing each word like it might cut, the only time you remember I exist is when you need me to fix something or pay for something. The silence on the other end stretched. Finally, she spoke again, her voice cold now. You're being ungrateful, Daniel. We've given you everything. I almost dropped the phone. Ungrateful. I wanted to scream. Everything I had, I'd worked for myself. They hadn't paid for my college, hadn't helped me with rent, hadn't lifted a finger when I struggled my first few years on my own. Meanwhile, Claire had lived at home rent-free until 26, with them covering her bills when she pursued her passion projects. But instead of yelling, I said quietly, I'll think about it, and hung up. As the screen went dark, a thought rooted itself deep inside me. Maybe it was time to stop playing their version of family altogether. Saturday morning came, and with it, the expectation. I knew my parents would be waiting, counting on me to show up like I always did. The dependable son, the fixer, the one who didn't need praise as long as the work got done. But this time, I didn't go. Instead, I sat in my apartment, coffee in hand, staring at the sunlight crawling across the floor. My phone buzzed twice, first a text from my dad, garage door. You coming? Then another. Daniel. I didn't answer. By noon, my mom called. Her voice was sharper this time, less sweet. Daniel, your father is waiting. Why aren't you here? I took a breath. Because I didn't agree to come. There was silence, followed by a scoff. Oh, don't be childish. You know we rely on you for these things. Something in me cracked open. Exactly. You rely on me. But you don't see me. You don't care about me unless I'm fixing something or paying for something. Do you even realize how that feels? Her pause was telling. When she finally spoke, it wasn't remorse, it was irritation. You always twist everything into some big drama. Your sister never complains. She just brings happiness. I gripped the phone tighter. She brings happiness because you choose to celebrate every little thing she does. I got promoted last month, and you couldn't even pretend to care. But Max gets a photo on the wall, and it's like the second coming. Her voice dropped low, controlled, like she was talking to a difficult child. Daniel, if you're jealous of a dog, that's something you need to work out on your own. I froze. My chest burned, my hands shook, and for a moment, I couldn't even find words. Goodbye, Mom, I said finally, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. Then I hung up. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying her words over and over. Jealous of a dog. It was supposed to sting like an insult, but instead, it clarified something. If they thought my entire worth could be compared to, and dismissed by, a pet, then maybe I wasn't wrong to feel like I'd been erased. Maybe I really was invisible in their world. And once you realize you're invisible, you start to wonder, what would happen if you disappeared completely? I didn't call. I didn't text. For 2 weeks, I let the silence stretch. At first, it felt strange, like I was breaking some unwritten rule of the family contract. Normally, if there was distance, I was the one to close it. I was the one to swallow pride, show up, fix things, and smooth it all over. But this time, I stayed put. On the 5th day, my phone buzzed. A message from my dad, Claire's moving some furniture tomorrow. Can you come help? I stared at the screen, half expecting a follow-up apology, some acknowledgement of our last conversation. Nothing came. Just the assumption that I'd show up. I typed back one word, no. The next day, another text. This time from my mom, Daniel, we don't understand why you're acting this way. Family should be there for each other. I almost laughed out loud. Family should be there for each other. Unless, of course, that meant celebrating me, noticing me, or treating me like more than an afterthought. For the first time in years, I let myself not care. I didn't respond. By the second week, the silence started working in my favor. The constant buzzing stopped. The weight of obligation loosened. I realized just how much space my parents had been taking up in my life. Not with love, but with expectation. Then, on the 14th day, Claire called. Her name flashing on my screen was like a warning siren. I considered letting it ring, but curiosity won. Finally, she said when I answered. What's your problem? Mom says you're sulking because of that photo. Are you seriously mad about that? Her voice was light, teasing, like this was some silly misunderstanding. It wasn't just the photo, Claire, I said evenly. It's everything. Years of being ignored, dismissed, treated like I don't matter. The photo was just proof. She laughed, actually laughed. Oh my God, you sound insane. You've always been too serious. No one meant anything by it. Max just makes people happy. Why can't you be happy for us instead of making it about you? Something in her tone, that smug certainty, pushed me past the edge. Because Claire, For once in my life, I'd like to matter as much as a dog. There was silence on the line. Then she scoffed. If you're that bitter, maybe it's better you don't come around. Click. She hung up. I stared at my phone, pulse racing. The words echoed in my head, over and over. Maybe it's better you don't come around. And for the first time, I started to think she might be right. After Claire hung up, I expected a flood of calls and texts. Maybe even an angry voicemail from my mom, trying to guilt me back into line. But what I got instead was nothing. Absolute silence. Days passed. Then weeks. And in that silence, something clicked inside me. They weren't calling because they didn't miss me. They weren't calling because, to them, I wasn't essential. I was the background character who only mattered when I was useful. So I leaned into it. I filled my weekends with things I never had time for before. Hiking, reading, even picking up guitar again, something I hadn't touched since college. For the first time, I wasn't rearranging my life around family obligations. And you know what? It felt good. Then, out of the blue, my mom texted. Daniel, we need to talk. Call me. Against my better judgment, I called that evening. She picked up on the first ring. Oh, sweetheart, she started, her tone frantic. I don't want to bother you, but Claire's having a tough time. She and Mark are going through a rough patch. We were hoping you'd come over, maybe show some support. I blinked. Support. After weeks of silence, the first time they reached out was, for Claire? What about me? I asked quietly. Did it even cross your mind to check how I've been doing? There was a pause, followed by a sigh. Daniel, you've always been strong. You don't need us the way Claire does. And there it was again. The same line, the same excuse, the same erasure dressed up as flattery. I can't do this anymore, I said. My voice was calm, almost too calm. I'm not coming over. Not for Claire. Not for anyone. I'm done being invisible. Daniel, she began, but I ended the call before she could finish. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. But peace doesn't last long in families like mine. Because when people can't use you anymore, that's when they panic. And soon enough, they would. 2 more weeks passed. No contact, no visits, no last-minute rescues from me. I thought maybe this was it. Maybe they'd just let me go and focus on their golden child. But then my dad showed up. It was a Wednesday evening. I was just getting home from work, grocery bags in hand, when I saw his car parked outside my building. He was leaning against it, arms crossed, his face set in that familiar mix of annoyance and false patience. Daniel, he said as I approached, we need to talk. I didn't invite him in. We stood in the parking lot, the hum of traffic filling the silence between us. You've made your point, he said. You're upset. Fine. But ignoring your family. That's too far. I set the bags down by my feet. I'm not ignoring my family. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. He scoffed. From what? A photo on a wall. I felt my jaw tighten. It's not just a photo, Dad. It's years of being overlooked. Years of watching Claire get celebrated for every little thing while I got nothing. That photo was proof. Proof that in this family, even the dog outranks me. For the first time, he didn't have a quick comeback. His mouth opened, then closed again. He rubbed the back of his neck. You're exaggerating. We love you. You just don't need the attention the way Claire does. There it was again. The line I'd heard my entire life. I almost laughed. You've been saying that for 30 years, I said quietly. But what you really mean is, it's easier to ignore me. He flinched, just barely, but enough for me to see it. Finally, he sighed. Your mother wants you at dinner this Sunday. Claire will be there. Can you come? Just, let's put this behind us. I shook my head. No. Not unless something changes. I'm not sitting at a table pretending everything's fine while my existence is treated like an afterthought. His face hardened. So that's it? You're going to throw away your family over some hurt feelings? I looked him dead in the eye. No, Dad. I'm walking away because for once in my life, I'm choosing myself. I picked up my groceries and walked inside without another word. Through the window, I watched him stand there for a long moment before finally getting in his car and driving off. And in that silence, I realized something terrifyingly freeing. If they weren't willing to see me for who I was, then maybe I didn't need them at all. Sunday came, and as promised, I didn't go to dinner. I turned off my phone, cooked myself a simple meal, and tried to enjoy the quiet. For once, there was no weight pressing on me, no expectation to perform the role of reliable son. But on Monday morning, when I turned my phone back on, I was greeted with a flood of messages. First, from my mom. Daniel, you broke your father's heart not showing up yesterday. He hardly ate. Is that what you want? Then another. Your sister cried. She thinks you hate her now. How could you do this to her? And finally, the kicker, family is all we have, Daniel. If you turn your back on us, you'll regret it one day when we're gone. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, my chest tight. Guilt, sharp, heavy guilt, pressed against me like a weight I'd carried all my life. But beneath it was something stronger. Anger. Clarity. I typed slowly, carefully, making sure each word was the truth I'd been swallowing for years. I didn't break Dad's heart. You broke mine a long time ago. Every time you overlooked me, dismissed me, replaced me, that was your choice. You chose Claire, you chose Max, you chose everyone else but me. And now I'm choosing myself. Stop calling me when you need something. Stop pretending I don't exist until it's convenient. If you can't see me as family, then don't expect me to play the part. I hovered over the send button for a long moment, my thumb trembling. Then I pressed it. The message delivered. Read. Minutes later, 3 dots appeared on the screen. My mom typing, erasing, typing again. Finally, nothing. No reply. For the rest of the day, the silence stretched between us, thicker than ever. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel crushed by it. I felt free. Still, a part of me knew this wasn't over. My parents weren't the type to accept boundaries easily. And I had the sinking feeling they'd try one last time to pull me back into their world, whether I wanted it or not. The last attempt came sooner than I expected. That Friday evening, as I was unlocking my apartment door, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there they were, my mom and dad, side by side, holding a framed photo. It was my graduation picture. The same one they had taken down. Daniel, my mom began, her voice trembling with forced warmth. We thought maybe you'd want this back. It doesn't belong in a box. I stared at the frame in her hands, then at their faces. Hopeful but not apologetic. Not changed. This wasn't about me. This was about keeping the family machine running the way it always had. I don't need it, I said flatly. My dad frowned. Come on, son. Don't be stubborn. We're trying here. No, I said, my voice rising for the first time. You're not trying. Trying would have meant seeing me years ago. Listening. Caring. Not waiting until I finally stopped playing along. My mom's smile faltered. We didn't mean to hurt you. You've always been so strong. I shook my head. No. I've always been so ignored. And I'm done pretending it's the same thing. I stepped forward, gently pushing the photo back into her hands. Keep it. Put it on the wall next to Max if you want. But it won't change what you've shown me. In this family, I was never more than convenient. Their expressions shifted, confusion on my mom's face, anger tightening my dad's jaw. But I didn't wait for their replies. I'm choosing myself now, I said, and with that, I turned and closed the door behind me. On the other side, I heard muffled voices, the shuffle of feet, and finally silence as they walked away. I leaned against the door, my chest heaving. For the first time, I felt the sharp edges of grief and relief mixed together. I hadn't just walked away from a photo on the wall. I'd walked away from years of being invisible. That night, I hung a new photo in my apartment. Not of graduation, not of some milestone my parents had ignored. Just a simple picture of me at the beach, hair messy, smiling at nothing in particular. A reminder that I didn't need their wall to prove I existed. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, by myself. And that was enough.